I don't want to say likely anymore, okay?
Well, he might still come back next year. I don't think so.
I'm just going to say he's done
I don't
myself.
think one of the owners of the team wouldn't have bought out a front page ad in the Post-Gazette thanking him if he thought there was any chance he might be coming back.
So you're okay if I report this in the updates?
Hey, I wrote
as Ben's
it.
Final game?
Wrote it. Will retire after the season.
That sounds good to me. Okay. Headlines powered by Bowser Chevrolet, your Pittsburgh Chevy headquarters. We've got all kinds of things to talk about, including Mike Tomlin's news conference coming up at noon. It's Cook and Joe.
Back with more Ron Cook and Joe Starkey. The Cook and Joe Show on Sports Radio 93.7 The Fan.
Ron, what if we start today, after exchanging pleasantries, with everybody's reaction to last night, where they were? Maybe they were in the stadium. Feels like one of those days that nobody got a good night's sleep and nobody really cares that they didn't get a good night's sleep. It's like that giddy morning after when you had a party back at Northwestern, me at Cortland State.
We studied at Northwestern. We didn't have
on
parties.
Sunday morning. You wake up on Sunday morning after a good party. Maybe you didn't even sleep, but you're giddily happy. You know what I mean? That was an emotional night at Heinz Field for one of the three, maybe two most influential athletes in the 2000s in this city. I mean, I would probably put Sid and Ben at the top of that list. Would you?
Absolutely. You know, it was an emotional night. And it's funny. I had the same reaction. You know, I don't like night games. I don't have any time to write. And I was almost hoping that they would just do Zoom stuff after the game. And if they had done that, I wasn't going to go to the game because it just does – it's easier for me to work from home with Zoom than it is from the stadium.
Yeah.
But I'm glad they didn't because I went to the game, and I'm glad I was there. You know, the only other time I felt anything like this is when Three Rivers was imploded. They brought it down, and I'm thinking, it's not going to be any big deal for me. And then when I saw it come down, it was a big deal.
Yeah.
I was glad I was there last night. It was a big deal to be there last night, and there were a lot of amazing things. I don't know, 10 people left before the end of the game, and his whole thing at the end of the game there, the stands were still full. I mean, it was a frigid night, not cold, frigid. I was inside, so I'm not complaining about that, but I talked to people who were there, and they used the word frigid. But
yeah.
Nobody left. They wanted to be a part of it and didn't want to miss anything. And the whole post-game scene with him doing a Cal Ripken Jr. along, that's what it reminded me of, walking along the south end zones, you know, slapping fives with people. And how about him going over to sit on the bench? As Dulac noted, he goes, Ben's having a private moment with 50 cameramen around him there.
The camera horde following him.
A little bit different.
Was unbelievable.
A little different than his seat on the bench last year with Pouncey with tears in his eyes, right?
Wow. What a night. And I'm wondering, when it hit people, was there a moment in particular that got you last night? And then just your general experience. Ron was in the stadium, as were close to 70,000 others, witnessing this thing right up to the end. I'm glad that Ben said what he said the other day. I think that made a difference. It might not have made any, but even our new boss here, Craig Riley, his sister-in-law flew in. Once people got that definitive word, I think it made a difference. I do. I'm glad that happened.
And then to thank you, Ben, in the Sunday Post-Gazette was
tremendous.
a pretty telltale sign,
yeah.
too, right? By Thomas Tull, one of the co-owners.
Right. And for me, I was at home watching the game with my wife. Of course, she was in tears 16 different times, Ron, including before the game. For some people, that might have been the moment when he ran out on the field. I'm curious to hear what the moment was when something hit you last night at 412-928-9370. For me, it was a strange one, and I'll tell you what it was. It was Ben on the move, nearly getting picked off, Ron. And I'll tell you why that one hit me, because at the same time, and it was all good. You know what I mean? His game wasn't good last night, but the emotions surrounding it were all good. And on that particular play, I realized yet again, he's done. It's the end. He almost got picked off. He's trying to run around and make plays. But what it made me think of was the creative genius that he was in his prime. There's been nobody that I've seen that has made plays out of nothing like him. And I don't know why that particular moment hit me like, wow, I appreciate having watched this guy make magic on plays like that for a long, long time. Was there a moment that hit you? For a lot of people, I think it was the photo op with the kids as they were walking down the tunnel.
I thought that was pretty cool with his kids because he's become, at least by all indications, a terrific husband and father. He lives for those kids. That was a big moment. But you know what I remember? I remember them getting the ball back with 10 seconds left.
Yeah.
And him going down to take the victory knee. Is there any better formation in football than the victory knee? And Mike Tomlin tried to call timeout with so he took the knee with 10 seconds, tried to call timeout with 6 seconds.
Right.
He was going to send in Mason Rudolph to let Ben come off.
Right.
We see that happen all the time.
That would have been incredible.
That would have been, but, both teams went on to the field. They didn't realize, and the officials finally said the heck with it, and they let the clock run out. But that was a pretty cool moment for me, seeing him take the knee in the victory formation in his last game at Heinz Field. He got one more left.
Yeah, I wanted to see him throw the ball on the series that Najee Harris scored. I wanted to see him stick it to the Browns one last time and run a play action and throw a touchdown, because other teams in that division are known to do things like that. So
well,
why not that?
Sticking it to him anyhow
on the Najee touchdown.
Ben did not have a good game. I mean, he will tell you that. All he cares about, though, was the W. So he finishes his career against the Browns 25-2-1.
Yeah.
Regular season, obviously, can't ignore the playoff game in January a year ago. But 25-2-1, I would call that exacting a little bit of revenge for the Browns passing on him in the 2004 draft. Don't you think for 1 second he doesn't love beating them?
Oh, yeah. Twice in his final year. Twice. He basically kept them from at least being in very good contention in the final week.
And he willed them to a win in Cleveland. I mean, he led 2 fourth-quarter drives. They didn't have a kicker, if you remember correctly. As I said, he was along for the ride last night. He didn't play well. Najee carried him. His defense carried him. But as he will tell you, all that mattered is the win. And they got the win, and they live at least for 5 more days until Sunday. Can they beat Baltimore? Yeah, I think so. Can Jacksonville beat Indy? I don't think so. But at least they have hope. He didn't play well. Najee carried him. His defense carried him. But as he will tell you, all that mattered is the win. And they got the win, and they live at least for 5 more days until Sunday. Can they beat Baltimore? Yeah, I think so. Can Jacksonville beat Indy? I don't think so. But at least they have hope for another 5 or 6 days. And he goes out a winner in his final game. It was terrific to see, terrific to be a part of it. I'm still not sure people have left the stadium. I mean,
I think they would have stayed all night.
It was unbelievable how they stayed, Joe. Amazing.
In all the atmospheres that you've been in at Heinz Field, I saw some people say there was, of course, the Ravens championship game when Troy's the interception.
Catch.
But as far as emotion from beginning of the night to the end, where did that rank?
It's right there with any that I've been. I mean, the playoff games obviously were unbelievable. In the Baltimore game, when Troy did make that interception, I've never felt that stadium rock like it did. Last night was pretty good. And you knew it from the start because you knew what you were watching. And, the Let's Go Ben chants at the beginning and thank you, Ben. And it was just made for a nice night. I was proud of the way Pittsburgh responded because, let's face it, they haven't always loved Roethlisberger. They didn't always love Fleury, for goodness sake, but they haven't always loved him. But last night, whatever feelings they might have had, they just wrapped their arms around him, and It was kind of cool to see.
He lost some fans along the way. There are people who don't love Roethlisberger, don't like him at all. And from early in his career, I understand people who may have turned him off for good. But for people who remain fans of him, last night was just a celebration, like I said, of I think right up there with Sid as the most influential athlete in this town since the turn of the millennium. I would put Troy in that category. McCutcheon, I would put him in that category.
Yeah, I mean, let him back from the dead for those 3 years. I would put him in that category.
Anybody else?
No, not on the Pirates, not on the Penguins. I mean, Malkin, I guess, and Letang, but Sid's still the primary guy. And Steelers, no. I mean, clearly, Ben. I mean, Jerome, obviously, and I would put in that category, too, if we're looking 2000s, because he won the Super Bowl in 2005.
Yeah.
Willed them to that. I would put him in that category, too.
And Mario still counts in the 2000s.
Yeah.
He had a pretty good run early on. But yes, I think Sid and Ben. Sid, Ben, and Troy, I would say, are the trio. Would you?
I'd include Jerome.
And Jerome.
Right.
I would include – actually, I would include McCutcheon.
Absolutely.
I would.
Absolutely.
Even though he didn't win a title, I still think what happened there with sort of leading a franchise
back from the dead.
Back from the dead
I mean,
is what he
Sid
did.
Thrift took over in the 80s, he said, it ain't easy resurrecting the dead. And he did it with Leland, and then McCutcheon did it and led that into 13, 14, 15 seasons.
And as emotional as last night was, and I wasn't there, but as emotional as observing it was for me, I still have to believe, and I was at this one, that the wild card game was the single most emotional game in Pittsburgh this entire 2000s. Would you agree with that?
Best sporting event I've ever been at. I mean, and I've been to Super Bowls, Final Fours, World Series, Stanley Cups. That was the best night of sports in Pittsburgh history, and I'm an old guy in my lifetime. Now, I wasn't quite around in the 60 Maz home
60,
run,
yeah.
but or the Immaculate Reception. But this was better than any Super Bowl that I was a part of. Partly because the Super Bowls didn't happen here.
Yeah, on Pittsburgh turf. So last night, was there a particular moment when everything hit you? I think when the waterworks started for a lot of people was not necessarily when the kids came out on the field, although that might have been it. His family came out on the field, his wife and kids, but it was more, I think, for a lot of people, the shot of Ben heading down the tunnel, where you saw him holding hands with a couple of his kids and his wife all walking down the tunnel. So it was the shot from behind that I think got a lot of people. But your thoughts, your feelings, were you in the stadium? If not, where were you and what were you thinking and feeling? 412-928-9370. It's one of those nights that you remember as a sports fan and a journalist.
Right.
You know, you remember that one. I remember Wayne Gretzky's final game. I was lucky enough to be there at the Garden when he literally handed the mantle of the league over to Yager after the game. It was incredible. The Penguins at Madison Square Garden. Moley never left the basement of Madison Square Garden to go out and watch the proceedings, Ron. It was incredible.
Last night was different than some others. I mean, Jerome retired after the Super Bowl. You knew he was going out, but it was in Detroit, his hometown.
Yeah.
McCutcheon, you kind of had the feeling it was his last game the year before.
Not memorable.
They traded him.
Yeah.
Troy wanted to come back.
No.
Not the same. There was no farewell.
Even Mario.
I'm trying to think. Well,
second time
retired once, came back.
But there was no ceremony because
No.
he was having the heart issues at the end, and it was just sort of announced,
No,
right?
I don't remember a farewell like that. I'm trying to think for anybody else. I mean, Elway played in the Super Bowl. I mean, I don't know what he got as the going away in Denver. I'm trying to think even if there was anybody else that had a moment like this. I'm sure there are. I just can't think of any.
Even Fleury, no, there wasn't a farewell. There was a welcoming back when he came back with Vegas. That was an emotional night that you'll remember. But this one kind of stands alone for me.
For me too.
Now that I think about it.
And I was thinking back to even Bradshaw. You know, he hurt his arm in the last game and then retired.
How many guys get that send-off?
Not very many. Not very many.
Any other Steelers that you can think of in their final home game? Franco obviously was gone to Seattle.
Jack Lambert,
Joe Green,
had a
I don't know.
toe in, turf toe. I mean, those guys. No, I don't remember that. I don't remember one quite.
It's
like
usually.
You have a
It's
feeling
usually
it's going to be, but you don't get the.
Well, it's an
you don't
ugly
get the
ending for
send-off.
for a lot of people.
Almost
it's
all
ugly.
of them. It's an
Almost
ugly
all.
And this was a great send-off for Ben, but they're not going to make the playoffs this year. It's not going to be a good overall happy ending for him. But I mean, how many guys don't get to go out on their own terms with any kind of farewell?
How about him going out, and he still has a game left, I realize, but this felt like the finale to me. I mean, it's still going to be a big deal in the league, whatever, next week, but this was it. And you captured this in your column. He did it against the Browns, the team that he felt humiliated against last season, his hometown team in Findlay, Ohio, the team that passed him up with the 6th
Kellen
pick.
Winslow Jr.
Yes. And to do it twice to them. What's their record? 7-9?
7-9.
They'd be 9-7 looking at a playoff spot next week with a win if Ben and the Steelers didn't do this to them.
No, you're right.
He gained the ultimate revenge on that sad franchise.
And to think that they went with Jeff Garcia instead of him.
34-year-old Jeff Garcia.
He was 3-7 in his 1 year as a starter. 1 year he started. They could have had Roethlisberger. And that's what I ask in my column. How much history might have changed if they'd have taken him number 6 overall instead of the chosen one? That's what remember when he was drafted, Winslow billed himself as the chosen one.
Yeah. How many get to write it like this? I mean, it's not perfect because he didn't have a great game.